Come on now. Okay, okay. All right, outside. Okay. Thank you so much for that intro. I had to, like, who is she talking about? She sounds cool. But thank y'all so much for having me, and I won't be before you long. I'm not gonna be like the pastors that say that I really won't be before you long. I have a few points I just want to share. First of all, give it up again for CodeCrew and this wonderful night that they're having. You all look beautiful out there. This is some really challenging work, and I know because I'm probably maybe 3 or so years behind trying to do something very similar in my hometown of Jackson, Mississippi, and I know what it takes. I know how people may look at you like you're crazy when you get started and look at you now, so kudos to everyone who was involved. I know you're doing some very impactful work. And so I just kind of want to leave you all with 7 points. Like I said, I started nonprofit Bean Path. We actually started our AI month in May. This month in Mississippi is AI month. We deemed it so. And so we had a press conference this morning. So I drove from Atlanta because I work full time still at Amazon. Drove from Atlanta this morning to make it the press conference in Jackson and drove up here, and I'll be headed back tomorrow. So I'm also very dedicated and excited to be here. We actually had about 20 senior citizens this morning also in our senior AI class. That we do to help them and just learn basic computer skills. We do work for youth. We do so many things for creatives, for techies, for small businesses revolving around AI. And I just want to make sure our communities are no longer left behind. So we share that same passion. So 7 points I kind of want to leave you all with, and I think this applies to everybody, whether you're technical or not. These are just some things throughout my career of having gotten a PhD, Georgia Tech, and sold a company to Amazon, and now working there and developed real estate, purchased 22 acres in downtown Jackson, 8 buildings that we're developing into the Jackson Tech District, and wanting to really see the community thrive. So I've learned a lot along the way. I feel like I've gotten a second PhD in doing any type of community development in Jackson, Mississippi over the last 5 years as well. So number one, start somewhere. It doesn't matter where you begin. It doesn't matter what your background is. Nobody's gonna go back and say, did you pass this class? Did you pass that test? What did you make? What was that score? Nobody's gonna say that when you get to where you're going. So just remember that. I know there's so many people that think that this is not for them and that tech is not for them. I work with people all the time who come from so many backgrounds and they're doing the same work, and you can do it too. So don't count yourself out. Number two, be creative and technical. You can do both. Actually, when I was graduating from high school, I was gonna major in music. I was this close. Even to this day, I have an uncle, he's like, you should have majored in music. I'm like, oh, I did all right, like, come on, man. But, you can do both. They try to tell me, you're gonna have to choose somewhere down the line. When actually, there's studies that show that if you have a musical background as well, it goes very hand in hand with math and tech. Because you have to think logically, you have to think along certain patterns, and certain patterns work together the same way. Same applies for sports. So I just encourage you all to have young children to make sure you keep that in mind, and just don't try to always separate the two. You can use that both sides of the brain as well. Skills are very transferable. Okay, don't let people pigeonhole you. You can get the same positions that you want. You just got to put in the work. So number three is a skill that I learned from the school of the hard knocks, demand, respect, and value. Now, it's no secret that there's not a lot of black people as well as females in the tech industry. And I could probably write a book about how many times I've been disrespected, how many times I've been undervalued, how many times people have just blatantly called me out, even when I had the most credentials out of anybody else in the room. And I'll be honest with you, it wasn't easy. It didn't always feel good. But unfortunately, this is something that you have to endure. Sometimes we're in those roles and those fields that don't always value you for your differences. And so I just hope that all the companies here are taking that to heart. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, I hope and pray that it's not going anywhere. It's very important that we still lean in and we play into those initiatives so that more people like me can exist and can thrive like the students who are graduating from CodeCrew. Number 4, oh, thank you. Number 4, keep fairness, diversity, and inclusion in mind even when you're developing your products or your software. When I was at Amazon, I remember the first 3 years I managed the team that did the camera search feature. If you ever use that, I use Amazon way too much, but if you ever use that, you go open the app, you click on the camera feature, you can point it at something and it will recognize it. But that was similar to the startup that was acquired by Amazon that I was the CTO for. And so about 3 years in, I was really kind of at the, really 1 foot out the door, 1 foot in the door. All the stock had invested, so I'm like, okay, I don't have to be here anymore. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to stay here? I want to switch teams? I ended up going to a conference, and it was actually a conference within Amazon, and I was sitting at a table. This was 2019. There was this paper that came out. It was really popular called the Gender Shades paper. And what the Gender Shades paper was about, it was a young woman by the name of Joy Bulawani who did all these analysis on face recognition software from a lot of major companies, IBM, Amazon, Google, and she saw that there were certain disparities for certain groups, especially when you think about law enforcement using these tools or military usage, and if the accuracies aren't the same across the board, then that could cause a lot of problems. So the paper basically pointed these things out, and of course, Amazon was in the paper. And so I was sitting down with one of my colleagues. He was an older gentleman. He was a manager, science manager on one of the teams. And he said, yeah, I was just looking at this paper and we're just trying to figure out, what can we do? And so, of course, granted, I'm the only black female AI scientist at Amazon out of like 1,000. I just happened to be sitting at this table with him looking at this paper that pointed out disparities amongst black females in our face recognition software. So I immediately sat down. I said, okay, this is what I would do. I would go back, look at your training images, get some images of some different hairstyles, make sure you have a lot of different people from a lot of different regions, because you can't just lump all black people into one group. You have to understand the differences and how they appear if we're talking about faces. And even if you want to look broadly across the entire world, there's so many differences you can do when you're trying to train AI models. You have to have balanced data. You have to have data from diverse places. And so once they did that, and he started going back to his team and running experiments, he came back to me the next day. He said, can you join our team? I was like, sure, why not? So I joined the team, and that was the first time in my corporate career that I felt valued for my differences. And again, after that came the pandemic, after that came the George Floyd murder, and I became even more sought after in that role. Unfortunately, why did that have to happen for that to be the case? I'm not sure, but I hope that, again, that we're keeping these things in mind. Even with developing our products, we since have co-founded the Responsible AI team in Amazon that manages and audits all of our 200 services. We've built a framework on responsible AI. We even meet with customers and Congress and organizations all the time to help them with their frameworks as well. And so we've grown out of that one experience. And so you never know where these things will take you. So number 5, always secure a good support system. Again, I do a lot of things. I'm not doing it on my own. I thank my sister and my brother-in-law. They're here today. They drove up from Senatobia, Mississippi, and they're always in my corner. I always have a whole team with BeanPath, a whole real estate team, of course, my team in Amazon, everyone that helps me. And of course, I know Maker has a wonderful team out there with CodeCrew. And so just lean in. Remember, there's no one man or one woman shows that make these sort of things happen. It takes a lot of resources. It takes a big team, and it takes a lot of people believing in the mission. And so that is something that you should always consider if you're also trying to go back and do this in your community. Number 6, very similar, sow seeds, give back. You have to do that. None of us got here on our own. We all got here because someone believed in us. I remember my 8th grade teacher pulled me to the side in class. I was probably, joking with my friends. She was like, hey, come here. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I thought I was in trouble. And so she said, hey, you should go to this summer camp. This is a summer camp for girls in engineering. And I was like, okay. She said, it's free. I said, okay, keep talking. And she said, it's at Mississippi State. This is about 2 hours away. I said, okay, cool, I'll do that. And so I got a chance to get away from the house and just go to Mississippi State. And I remember, which I actually ended up going there for undergrad, but I remember just being blown away because she pulled me to the side. She decided to sew back into me. She saw something in me that was different. I wish so many other of my colleagues and classmates would have had that opportunity. They too may have pursued engineering, but you never know when you sew into a child, when you see something in that child that's different, encourage them. Don't downplay that. Don't second guess it. Make sure you pour into them. You never know where it's gonna lead you. And number 7, just do you, boo. I can't tell you how many times you've heard this imposter syndrome thing. It is very real. I can't tell you how many times. The older I get, I just learn, you know what? I'm just gonna be me. If they like it, they love it. If not, okay, I don't care. I mean, I can only do what I can do. And the more I realized, the more I was true to myself, the more people appreciated that and they were authentic and genuine, and the circles around you are more genuine too. So for those, especially going into the workforce, especially if this is your first job, I just encourage you to just stay true to who you are. You don't have to worry about trying to be like everybody else. People will value you for who you are. And so keep that in mind because you are valuable. And so again, I thank you all for having me. I told you I wouldn't be before you long. And thank you so much. Y'all have a good one.